Hello there, I'm Latif and you're welcome to Code with Laticotech. In this video, we're going to look at loops in Python. In our previous video, we looked at the for loop, but in this video, we're going to look at the while loop. Then we're going to look at the syntax of the while loop. We will also look at some projects under the while loop. And then we also identify what we call the infinite loop and how to solve any issue associated with it. We also have what we call the input function, which we use to accept data from the user. So we're going to consider that one in the while loop. We also look at the not and or operator in the while loop, how to use it. We also have what we call the jump statement. This jump statement includes the break and the continue statement. We're also going to look at that one. And then finally, we also look at the else statement with the while loop. Usually else statement, we do see them when we are dealing with the if statement, okay, the conditional construct. But here, we can also deploy that one in a while loop. So what is a while loop? A while loop executes a block of code repeatedly as long as the test control or the condition of the loop is true. So the moment the condition is true, then the loop will continue. Now it stops executing the block only if the condition fails. So when the condition becomes false, then it will stop executing. Otherwise, it can execute outside the loop. It is useful when the number of iterations is not known prior to the execution of the loop. Now one should use a while loop when one needs to perform a repeated operation, but doesn't know in advance how many iterations will be needed. Okay. Now look at this. Let's look at the syntax. So within the syntax, we have what we call the counter variable. Now the counter variable, we initialize it with a value, that is the startup count, okay, because looping is about starting from somewhere to another point. So we initialize it with a value, it can be 1 or 0. Then we now give a test condition here. So we start with while and give the condition, then we break it here. Then we can print series of statements here, and then we now continue printing those statements that we want. To do that, we can increment or decrement it. So to increment, we take counter variable equal the counter variable plus the increment. How to increment it? If we want to decrement, then we rather do a minus of the value. Then after that, when the statement becomes false, then a print statement will be printed down here, or another code block will be executed down outside the loop. So outside the loop will be this statement here. Now in this case, the while is a reserved word. Now remember, a reserved word means a word with predefined meaning and syntax in Python. So we can't use while as an identifier for a variable function. Now the condition is checked for true or false. This is the condition here. It is going to be checked for true or false. And the statement are executed only if the condition is true. So this statement will be executed with the iteration if the condition is true. But if the condition is false, then outside the loop, any statement that is there will be executed. So at least one statement must be in the body of the loop. So we can just have one statement or more here. Okay. All right. So let's look at some examples on that. This is what we call the flow chart. This is how the flow chart of the while loop looks like. So you test the condition. If the condition is false, it will exit. And then if it is true, then the statement within the loop will be executed. So these are the three examples we're going to consider. We're going to our code editor to do this word program. So we're going to write the program to print 5 statements. And then count the statement. Then we also do that we can print more than that, but in this case we're going to print 10 times, and then we're going to do the counting in the reverse order. Then we can also do another program that will print 5 natural numbers. Okay, so let's go to our code editor and see how to do this one. Right, so our first project is to write a program to print a statement 5 times and count it. So before we do this, I would like to draw your attention to what loop actually is. Now imagine being asked to print a series of statements. Let's say if I want to print something like statements, okay, and I want to print them more like 10 times, the normal way of doing it is to type this print and then you put your statement here or your strings here, and all you need is just to copy and paste. Okay, you just copy and paste a couple of times. Sorry, let me put this one down. You just paste it a couple of times. So we have it this way. So if it is 20 times, you have to keep repeating. If it is 1,000 times, you have to do that. Let's run this one. I'll let you understand what I mean like that. So it keeps printing all of this. Okay. Now doing it this way is not part of the tradition of coding. It's just repetition makes it boring. So the best way to do this is use iterations to do that one. So let's see how to do that one. Now first we have to put a count. So we say count equals, let's start from 1 because we are printing statement 5 times. It can be 6 times or 10 times. So if we are doing it 5 times, so we have to start from somewhere and we're going to move upwards. So we're going to ascend from 1 and we go to 5. So we say while our count is less than or is the same as 5. So if the condition is that the number that is going to come from the count, if it is less than or is equal to 5, then we are going to print something. My statement is here. So we just printed something. So it will print it. But when we do this way, it will print it just once and keep repeating it without stopping. And we call that infinite loop. I will show you how that infinite loop is in this lesson. So what we can do is we have to do the iterations. So to increment the count, we can say count equals to count plus 1. So we are saying that the previous one is 1. After printing 1, then we increment it with 1. Then it goes to the next one by incrementing it by 1. Another way of writing this is you can just say count plus equal 1. This is another way of writing this statement here. So you can write it this way or that way. So let me just comment one of them. I don't need this one, so I'll just maintain this and then run it for you to see. Now after that is done, now the moment the value here is more than 5, it's going to stop. So anything that is outside this while loop can be printed. So we can print something outside here. What do you call it? Count is finished. Something like this. So let's run this. So we can see that it is printing my statement is here, my statement is here, my statement is here. Then that is 5 times. So as it is going more than 5, it cuts out of it, it becomes false, and it is printing this statement that is outside, that is count is finished. Now don't forget, we asked it to count whilst printing. So to do that, we can come here, put a comma, and type count. So it will be printing the count for us whilst printing the statement. So we can do this. So my statement is here, that's 1, 2, 3 to 5. So this is how to count in an ascending order. Like I told you, this statement can be written this way. So let's comment this one too and uncomment this one and run it to see if it will give us the same result. So if I click here, we have the same result as it's done with this one. Right, so let's look at our second program. We are to write a program to print a statement. Let's make it 10 times and count in the reverse order. So we have to also initialize our count. So here I will give it a different variable. I can call it my count. This case we are starting from 10 because we are to descend. We are counting from higher value to the lower value because we are counting in the reverse order. Instead of going from 1 to 10, we are now going from 10 to 1. So we see while my count, so that is the variable, initial variable we just declared there, once it is greater than or equals to 1. So because we are moving from 10, so once that number is not going to be less, we're doing it if it is greater than or equals to the same one, then we want to print the statement. So we can just say print the reverse statement is here. Okay, now how do we count in the reverse order? So let's put my count here, so that as it is counted we can see it in the reverse format. And then let's do the decrement. This time we're not incrementing but rather decrementing. So we can say my count equal to my count minus 1. So it will be decremented by 1. Then when that is done, when the count is done, we can print something here which is outside the loop and said all reverse statements are printed out. So let's run it and see. So run this. So this is our first program. Now the second program is here. The reverse statement is here. So it starts from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And once it is done, then it prints the outer statement, which is the reverse statement, are printed out. So this is how to run it in the opposite, the reverse order. Okay. One way to also do, if you want to give space between your text as it is printed this way, let's come here. I can come here and put a backward slash and put n like this. So it's going to put space between these statements here. So let's run it. So you can see the space between them here. And here we can put another one out here, so that when it's done, it will jump accordingly to this one. Or we can just put one here, backward slash and then n. And then let's run it. So it prints and give a space to the last one too. So this is how to run that statement in the reverse order. Let's see what we have in our next what do you call it, program. Now in our third program, basically we're going to write a program to print the 5 natural numbers. So write a program to print the first 5 natural numbers. So we need to give a number. So let's say I'll just call it num1 equals. So since we are printing natural numbers and we are counting them upwards, what we can do is let's start from 1 and we say while num1, okay, is less than equal to 5, because we also need a 5 because we are printing the first 5 natural numbers and 1 is a natural number. So from 1 to 5, so we'll put the equal there. Then we print num1, that's the number we are printing. We can use this statement here and to print them in a series format, and we can separate them with a comma and a space. This way, this is how we do it. So I put the comma and I put a space here so that it will print them with a space between them. So now since we are incrementing, we now say num1 plus equal 1. Okay, we can also say num1 equal num1 plus 1 the same way. And when that is done, we can print something outside. We say all done. So let's run this. So let's go there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then it prints all done. So this is how to print 5 natural numbers using the while loop. Alright, so let's go back to our list and see what we have next. Okay, so we're going to look at what we call the infinite loops. Now the infinite loops, it comes when you fail to put something that we call exit strategy, okay, within your code. Sometimes you might want to create a code that will keep printing something infinitely without stopping. So in that case, it is positive for you. Otherwise, it might look like an error for you in your code. So for instance, if I've initiated my count variable to 1, and I said while the the count variable is less than 6, and I'm printing the count variable without giving, this is why I put my exit strategy. If I don't put my exit strategy, then it will keep printing 1 for me without giving any code block down there. So the alternative way to do that is after the print I, which is here, I can now say increment or decrement. So here, this will serve as an exit strategy for me. Okay, alright, so let's see how to do that one in our code editor. So using this as an infinite loop, let me zoom this out. We're dealing with the infinite loop. So let's say I have a counter variable which is 1, and I'm initiating it with 1. So while I is less than 6, print I. So let's run this statement, because this statement doesn't have an exit strategy. What we are saying is that while it is 1, while the I, the count variable is less than 6, it should continue printing the 1 for us. So let's run and run. So I think I'm running the infinite loop, so it keeps running it without stopping. Okay, so the best way to do this is to put an exit strategy. So to put this, either I can increment or decrement it. So I can say I equal, so I plus equal, maybe I can increment it by 1. In this case, when I rerun it, it's now printing I till 5, because it should be less than 6. And you can also put another statement outside here. Great job. Something, just put something there, and then that's it already. So this is how to exit out of infinite loop, and it is always because we have not put an exit strategy, and this is where the issue comes in. So after the print statement, we need to put some code block here that will determine what to do next after printing 1. Alright, so let's go back and see what we have next. Alright, so we're going to consider what we call the input function. The input function in Python is used to accept input from the user. So we're going to consider 3 projects here, and then we'll see how to use the input function. Now the first project is that we're going to write a program to print a user's name, and if the user fails to input anything, then the program will continue asking the user until the user inputs something. Then the next program, we're going to ask the user to input the date, the age in years, and it will not accept if the age is a negative value or is less than 1. So it will keep prompting to ask the user to input a positive figure. Then we also look at how to accept data from the user, series of numbers from the user, and then compute the total for the user. So let's go back to our code editor and see how to sort that out. Okay. Right, so let's write our first program. So we are to write a program to accept, let me put the comment very well. So write a program to accept username if user fails to input any data, then keep prompting user for input. So that's what we're going to do. So for the input function, what you usually do is to give the user the opportunity to enter something. So to do that, we declare a variable that will tell the user what to do. So our variable will be your, let me just say user name. Our username is a Python keyword, so let me just say your name. It's okay. And I'll say input, then I'll say enter your user name to continue. So we will do this. So whilst your name is not empty, so this is how to put empty in Python. So whilst the input is empty, if it is empty, then we will keep prompting you to do. So we will do this print. You must enter a username to continue. So if that's the case, then we have to also allow the user to be able to have a chance to input again. So in this case, we are repeating the whole of this code again. So to come out and say enter your username to continue. So here, so long as the user didn't put anything, which is if it is empty, if the username is empty, then it will tell the user you must enter username to continue. And then we also give the user an opportunity to enter, so we have to repeat this code down here. And then if the user inputs the username, then we can now print something. Let's use F formatted string here and set thank you. Then we can put the name that the user has typed in. So we can see your name, because your name is what the user will be typing. That's if the user inputs it. Thank you, maybe John, for your input. So let's go back to the code and explain it a little bit further. So we initialize it by giving the user a variable here, and this variable will be asking the user to input a data in or username. So we use the input function here, and which will let the user type something for the program to run. Now we now come to the conditional statement here, and this is the condition we are setting up. Whilst the your username, your name, that's this variable, is empty. So if it is empty, if it is true that it's empty, then we want to print this statement by telling the user that the user must enter username to continue. Then we also give the user the chance to repeat what was asked first to input. That is why we are repeating it here. Now, if the user happen to enter the username, that means this statement becomes false because it is no more empty. Then the last statement will be printed out. So let's run this and then see. So we're dealing with the input function. So it's asking for enter your username to continue. So let me just press enter without typing anything. It keeps prompting me, you must enter username to continue. So I'm pressing enter again without inputting anything. I'll do that again. But the moment I type my name, okay, so user 5, then it tells me that thank you user 5 for your input. So this is how to run that program. Let's look at our second program. So we have to write a program to accept age of our students. Now, another condition that we're going to set is that if the age is less than 0 or a negative value, keep prompting for a positive value. So if the user inputs a value that is less than 0, definitely any value less than 0 has to be 0, has to be a negative value. So if the user inputs anything that way, then we keep prompting the user to do that. In fact, we can do it that way if it is less than or equal to, so less than or equal, we'll put this here, less than or equal to 0. So if it is less than or equal to 0, then we will keep prompting the user. So we can start here by giving a variable for an input. So we can say your age equal, and this time is going to input age. So we use int before we bring the input. So this is the difference between the first input method and this method. Here we have put telling the program to realize that whatever input is coming is going to be an integer, it's going to be a value. We can use floats, F-L-O-A-T, if we want the user to input something that involves decimals. But here, since we are dealing with age, we need to get it in years. So we say input, then we can type something here for the user to read. So enter your age in years. So in this case, we want it to be a value without months, so it should just be in years. Then now we bring our while statement. What's your age? So here, if the age is less than 0, so we can say it's less than or equals to 0. So that means that it is either a negative value or it is exactly 0. Then we can print something to tell the user that your age must not be less than or equal to 0. So then that means we have to give the user a chance to input again. So we'll bring that statement back here again to prompt the user to input. So if the user is able to input the age and the statement becomes false, then we can print a statement using the formatted string. We can say your age is, Then we put the age here, so your age years old. So we can say your age is 5 years old or 10 years old, provided the user has inputted a positive value. So let's run it again. So our first program is asking for a name, so let me just say John. Now this is our second program, it's asking me for the age. So let me say 0. So it will prompt me that your age must not be less than 0, less than or equals to 0. Let me put a negative value, negative 17. It still prompts me that, but if I put something like 56, then it prints my age. Your age is 56 years old. So this is how to run that. So you can see the difference between the input here. In this case, this the first statement, we're only inputting a statement, a string, so we don't need to convert it to a number. But here, since we need a number to be input, and we use int, they'll open the bracket, put the input again, open another bracket. Now we have two close brackets here because we've opened 2 brackets outside here, so we have to close it with 2. So this is how that works. Let's look at our third program. So we're going to write a program to accept, let's say, 6 numbers from a user and calculate the sum. Now, in this case, we'll be needing 2 counter variables outside. The first counter variable, we can call it let's just call it sum, and we initialize it to 0. At the initial stage, we want the sum to be 0. This sum, let me just add something like sums, okay, because sum is like a Python input, a keyword. And then our count, we're going to count, we also initialize it to 0. Now we want to print numbers from accept numbers, 6 numbers. So 6 numbers, let me use the count to be 1 because we're going to start from 1. Now while our count is what do you call it, less than or equals to 6. So whilst the count is less than or equals to 6, so that means we started from 1, then we go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8 to accept 6. Then what we can do over there is we will let the user to input a value, and that value will be accepted, and then we compute it for the user. So we can say your value equals int. Here I can use float because maybe the user want to put a decimal, so I can use float input. Enter your number. So if the user enters the number, what we do is to now calculate the sum. So sums equals to sums plus your value. Because our initial sum is 0. Now if the user input a number, then we add it to the 0. Then if the user input again the total that we have, then we add the value to that total, and it is going to be a continuous one. And then we have to also be counting. So count plus equal 1. So we start counting from 1 till we get to 6. And when that is done, we can print the sum here. We can print this is formatted string, your total sum, or total, yes, total sum is, let me go here and put sums. Now when that is done, we can also print a statement here, the end. So we are asking the user here to input a value here. So we have to start by putting our sums to be 0. So I've just used the word sums here. You can use anything, you can say total. And then we start our count because we're accepting 6 numbers. So we start counting from 1. So once the count is less than or is the same as 6, because we want to print 6, accept 6 numbers, then we now allow the user to input a number because we want to accept the numbers. So the first thing that we do is we can use a float or we can use integer. The float is better because when the person decides to input decimal, then the system will accept it and calculate for you. Okay, then we now say sums equals to sums plus your value. So we are adding the value that you've given to the previous sums that we have here. Then now we start iterating because it is going to be counting from the 1 till the user keep putting the figures. So when the user gets to 6, then this will print out the total for us, and when that is done, it will just print this the end. So let's run this. So I'm going to just put something here, John. That's my first program, and my second program I'm putting an age. So now so we are done with these two because that is this ones that we first run. So I'm now going to this part here. So let's take note of that. So that is this place. It is asking me to enter your number. So let me just say 4, and then maybe 2.5 and 1.5 and 7, or 5 rather, and 7. And then let's put 8. So let's count and see how many I've indicated there. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now your total sum is 28. So anytime I input it, it will be counting it for me. It will be adding it for me. And that is what we have here. Okay. So this is how to use the input function with the while loop. Right? Alright. So let's see what we have next. So now we're going to look at the not and or operator with the while loop. Then we're going to do some projects. We're writing a program with the not operator, and then we also write a project with the or operator. Alright, so with the first project, we're going to write a program that will accept favorite food from the user. So long as the user did not press to end the game, then it will keep asking the user to print, type in the favorite food, then it will print the favorite food for the user. And the second program is going to also ask for the user to input a number that will fall within 1 and 10. Now if the number is outside 1 or outside 10, so within that range, then it will keep prompting the user to input the data. So we are going to deploy that one with the while loop. So let's go back to our code editor and see how to do that one. Alright, so our first program is to accept favorite food from user and quits the program if the user press Q. So if the user press Q, then we quit the program. So in this case, we have to let the user input. So we are still using the input function here. So I can say fav food, that's your favorite food, and I'll say input, then give a statement, enter your favorite food. So the user will input the favorite food. So now the condition is while yes, so we are accepting the favorite food from the user. Okay, so our condition is that while not, this is where we put the not, fav food is equals to the letter Q. Let me just explain this out here. So whilst the food is not a Q, that is whilst the input that you are putting here is not the letter Q, then we want you to print whatever the user has inputted. So print, and let me use formatted string, your favorite food is, then we print fav food here. So to print this one. Okay. Alright. So otherwise, if the user press the Q, then that means the statement becomes false, and we can print something here and say you have quit. So let's go over this again. So we use the while and bring the not here. Now if I take off the not, anything that is typed, or if the user types Q, then it will print Q for us. Okay, but I'm saying that it shouldn't be Q, so that's why we use the not here. So let's run this and see. So we deal with not. So enter your food. Let me see, rice. So I didn't put an exit strategy, so I didn't do my count here. So let me put my exit strategy here. Okay, so the exit strategy is, to allow the user to input the next, give the next food to be printed. So it's just like it's iterating. So remember what I talked to you about, the infinite loop. So if you don't have an exit strategy, it will keep printing the first statement that you've given. So it will just keep saying your favorite food is right, your favorite food is right. So I want that if it's finished printing the first thing that is typed, it should give the user the option again to do that one. So it will stop the first print and then come to this line again. So let's run it again. So let's say rice. So it will print the rice and ask me to put a different one again. So I can just say sushi, and then if it asks me to print again, I say tuzafi. Then it keeps prompting me again. But the moment I press Q, and it will say you've quit. So that is why it is if it is not Q that is typed, keep printing whatever the user has typed for me. But so long as it is Q, then stop the game and get out of the loop and go and print whatever is outside here. So that is how to run that program. Let's look at our next example. So we are going to use the OR statement. In this case, we're going to accept values from 1 to 10. Now any value outside this range will force the program to keep iterating or keep looping. So to keep asking you to do that. So to do this, we need to have give the user an input function to input a number inside. So we can say we use a short num. I'll call it num1 equal int input. Then we'll give a statement by telling the user enter a number from 1 to 10. So this is what we want the user to input there. While num1 is less than 1, or num1 is greater than 10. So this is the condition we are setting here. Whilst the number is less than 1 and the number is greater than 1. We don't want the number to be less than 1 and we don't want the number to be greater than 10. So if the user input and the number is less than 1 or is greater than 10, we're going to print something and say your input is invalid. Or we can just print the number that the user has inputted. Let's use formatted string and say this number, okay, is invalid. Let's print that number, or I could just print it inside the formatted string. Invalid, I can just put it here, num1. So this number is invalid. Okay, try again. So if the user is trying, then we need to prompt the user again to input the number again. Now if it is now false, if the number is within that range, it means the statement becomes false. We can now print something here, this formatted string, and say your number is valid. So we'll bring the number here. Alright, number 1. So we cannot print the number. So let's run this and see. So our first program was, let me just quit. Then now it's asking me to enter a number from 1 to 10. Now you see where we put the OR statement. This is where we put the OR statement. So we are comparing two things. So one of these should be true. It just needs one of them to be true. If I use 10, that means both statements must be true. In this case, we have to use AND statement, and we have to give two inputs. So it can be the first number and the second number. So let's say I'm using 23. So it says this number is invalid. That's 23. Try again. Then let's say -1. This number is invalid. Let's say 0. This number is invalid. Try again. So let's put 4. Your number is valid, and that is 4. So this is how to use the NOT operator and the OR operator in the what you call the while loop. You can use the AND operator. So if I'm going to use the AND operator, for instance, let me just repeat this statement here. Okay, let me type something here. So we look at the AND statement. Let's say using the AND statement. So I can say first, this case we are comparing two numbers, and those numbers must be true. So we can just say first num equals int input, then we say enter first number from 1 to 10. Then let's repeat the same thing here, and this one will be second number. So enter second number. So in this case we can say while first num. Okay, so we're going to compare two things. While the first num is less than 1, okay, and second num is greater than 10, so we are using AND here. So these two statements must be true before it can work for us. Let me just repeat this. Okay, let me come here and say print. So when the statement is outside this two range, it must satisfy this. It must be within that range, or it must be within both range. The number must be less than. It must be 1 and above, or it can be 10 and less. So print, let's say this is invalid. I just want to run over this one, and then I'll prompt the user again to do the same inputs, and then when it is okay, then I can now say print. Let's use formatted string. These numbers are valid. So let's print the numbers, and the numbers are first num and second num. So let me run this one. So let me quit from this statement, and then let me put 1 here. So now the second, so it says enter first number from 1 to 10. So let me put 1, and the second number, let me put maybe 6. So it is what we call the statement becomes false, because yes, these numbers 1 and 6, they are either what do you call it within the range of 1 to 10. So it has accepted 2. But let's run it again. I'm going to try something out. And then, so let's say I'm using 1, and the second one I'm using 23. The statement is going to be false. because the second number is telling me enter second number. Okay, let me do the second number. So enter first number, I use 10, and then the second one says enter second number. Let me make that one 10. One of them is true, 23 and 10. So it is greater than 10, so it works for us here. Okay, so both conditions have to be true before it can't. Well, if both conditions, if the condition is false, then it will print the statement that is here for us. All right, so this is how to use the OR within a while loop. Okay. Now our next is on the topic is on the jump statement within the while loop. We use this one when we're dealing with the for loop. So a jump statement, what do you call it? Python offers two jump statements to be used within loop to jump off loop iterations. There are the break and the continue statement. So let's see what the break statement is. The break statement enables a program to skip over a part of the code. This statement terminates the current loop and resumes execution at the statement immediately after the body of the loop. It breaks or stops iterations at a particular point within a loop. Thus, it breaks out of the loop. So, with the break statement, when you give a condition, it gets to that condition and stop iteration. It will not print over again. And this is how the syntax is. So, you have the while condition here, and you can print any statement here, and that statement will continue iterating. But when we get to the statement here, the condition here, if the condition is positive, if it is true here, then the break will stop. Instead of printing the second statement for these ones, so it prints the first initial statement, and instead of printing the second one, because of the condition being true, it will jump these two statements and it will go to the fourth statement and print that one out. Okay, so let's see how to solve that one. Let's consider this program with the break statement, and we come back to the continue statement. All right. So let's run a simple code here with the break statement. So we're just going to say, so here we just say break with while loop. So I can just iterate I equals to 0. Now while I is less than 5, with the, what do you call it, the break statement, you can print out, you can start printing the statement over there. So you can say print I. Let's take note of this here. The structure is a bit different from the continuous statement. So we can print the I, and then let me just initiate this one to 1. I want it to be that way. And we can bring the condition here. If I is equals to 3. So this is a condition we are setting within this while loop. Okay. So when the I is equals to 3, then we can break here. It shouldn't print again. It should stop. But we have to do the iteration under the break. So this is how we do the iteration. We can do I plus equal 1. So this is the iteration. And when that is done, we just print any statement here. Or break statement is done. So when we run this, it is going to start from 1. So long as 1 is less than 5, it will print 1. Then it will go here, because this is where it goes. It will go here and start iterating to 2. Then if it goes to the third one and then it is 3, it wouldn't print again. It will stop at 3 and then jump out of the loop and go and print this one. So let's run it and see. So we are doing break and continue. So it runs from 1, 2, and goes to 3. That's the condition. Then it breaks out and then goes to print outside the loop. Okay, so this is how the break statement works. Let's look at how the continue statement is. So with the continue statement, it skips the rest of the loop statement and executes the next iterations of the loop. This statement executes the next iteration by updating the loop variable with the next value in the sequence. To skip an iteration at a particular item or value, we use the continuous statement. So with the continuous statement, what it does is that it's going to we have the while loop and we have our statements here. Now with this, if the statement becomes true, the condition is here is true, it will continue, but it will break, it will not print that statement, it will jump and print the rest of this statement, and it goes out to print these ones too. So it will print this. Okay, so if it gets to the condition that is set here, if the condition says skip statement 2, it will not print statement 2, it will jump to 3, 4, 5. And even 4, 5 are outside this loop. After it's done, it will go and print this one. So let's look at an example under the break statement. So we're going to look at the continue. Sorry, I keep mentioning the break statement. We are dealing with the continue with the while loop. So it is rather the continue, not the break. We just finished with the break here. So let's also give a variable x equals, so initialize it. I'll initialize it as 0. So while x is less than, let me say 5. In this case, instead of just printing, so here we just started printing it. Instead of printing the statement, we have to do the initialization here. So x plus equal 1. So we have to do the iterations here. We have to do the iteration here. So it's going to be iterating. That is the count. Then we now bring the if statement. So if the value is equal to, let's say if it gets to 3, so this is the if statement, then we say continue. So in this case, if it gets to 3, it is going to, jump from the tree and then go and print any statement that follows it. So we can just say, what they call it, print, sorry. Now this one will bring the print. Now the difference is this, we can, with the break statement, we bring the print out after the condition, and then we bring the iteration down after the break. But with this one, we bring the iteration after the condition is set, that is the while condition. Then we bring the print statement after the continue statement. So it's just like kind of swapping them. Then we can print something outside here. Okay, we can just say all continue statement done. So let's run this. So here we go. We have the first one. So here we have 1, 2. Then the moment it gets to 3, it jumps from the 3 and goes to 4 and 5. Then after that, it goes outside the loop to create this statement down there. So this is how to use the break and continue statement in a while loop. Alright, so let's go and see what we have next. Right, so finally we're going to look at the else statement with the while loop. Okay, usually we have an else statement that is used mostly when we are dealing with what you call the conditional construct, that is the if else statement, but we can also use else statement within the while loop. So we're going to do 3 things here. We're going to use else statement with the if, and then we can use the break or the continue as well. Okay, so let's go back to our code editor and see what we do. Alright, so let's just get an example here. So here I'm going to do the else with break in while loop. So let's initialize our statement with value. Let's say we'll call it num equals 0. Okay, and then while num is less than 5, this is a condition we are setting for the while loop. Since we are dealing with the break statement, what we can do is to first print. So we are dealing with the break statement, we print first before we come to the incrementation. Then we bring the condition here. So this is how the construct is. So we bring the condition. So if num is equals to, let's say, 6. So what I'm going to do is that I want to print a number from maybe 1 to 5, and or maybe 1 and then to something that's less than 5, and if it is equals to 5, then we say that we break. Okay, we break. So break, and we can print here. So we do the iteration rather, so we can say num plus equal 1, and we can print outside. So here, this is where we bring the else statement. Instead of printing outside, we just put the else statement outside here. Else, and we can print something here. The what do you call it? Number is not less than 5. Yes, so this is why we put the else statement here. Alright, so let's run this and see. So we have 1, 2, 3 to 5. Now, because these are less than 5, it breaks out of that here. Okay, so since they are less than 5, if the number is equal to 5, we are breaking out there. Okay, so we can even put equal here. And let's run this again. So because we added the equal, then we are forcing the equal to come in here. Okay, so if we run it again, we have the 5 going off because it is not equal to 5. But if so we are saying that if the number gets to 5, it should break. It shouldn't print again and stop there. Okay, so this is how to use the break statement in the break with the else statement in the while loop. The other opposite way is the continue, the else with the continue statement. So else with continue in the while loop. So in this case, we can also iterate. Let's say x equals to 0, and we say while x is less than 5. In this case, we have to do the what do you call it, iterations here. Okay, that is the count variable, the increment here. So we can say x plus equal 1, and then we now bring the if condition. So if x is equals to, let's say if it is 3, then we print continue, go back, and then we can print here. Now we can print the x, and now we can bring our else statement here. We say print the what do you call it, the continue statement is done. Just printing out something on this. So let's run this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is where we go. 1, 2, and when it is 3, it jumped and printed 4, 5. Okay, so it jumped and printed 4, 5. We can make this 1, 2, 3. Let's run it and see. So we are saying that it is, if it is equals to 3. So we have 1, 2, and it goes to 3. So as it's got to 3, it stops. That's the break. Then this statement. So it would, since this one is true, the else statement is skipped. It's not printed. The else statement will only come when this becomes false. So since it is true that it is 3, it has stopped and jumped all over from the else statement. But in this case, after getting to 3, it continues. It jumped from the 3 and then continue from 4, 5. So this is how we use the else statement within the while loop. Okay, so this is all that we have in this video. If you have any comments or any questions, drop it down in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Share this video to anyone who has interest in programming in what we call Python, and like the video. On this note, I'll say take care of yourself and stay safe. Bye for now.